my role involves me working as an EMS advisor for Enable New Zealand, and it involves me running outreach, wheelchair and seating and lying support clinics in the lower South Island of New Zealand, and also answering requests for advice. So moving on to the next slide. We've been using telehealth as a team now for a couple of years, so it wasn't actually anything too new for us. We've used it to reduce travel and allow us to access clients in isolated areas. So that could be where we're travelling to Central Otago for a clinic and we've only got one person to see. We've been able to zoom in and run that clinic. I've used it to include company representatives on visits who are located elsewhere. So where I've had a company rep that makes custom cushions for us based in the North Island, and I've been down in Otago or Southland on clinics, I've FaceTimed him in. I've had the template of the cushion, I've been able to script it with his input, and he's been able to eyeball the clients and see the person that he's going to be making the cushion for. I've used it for case discussions with therapists, sometimes outside of clinic, and also for requests for advice. Also used it to attend a visit with a therapist who'd requested a request for advice and wasn't quite sure about what wheelchair she wanted. She happened to be going to see the client the next day, and so I FaceTimed in on that visit and was able to see how the client transferred the space that they had and try and work out what wheelchair was actually going to work. During COVID-19, have had to use it just a little bit differently, as all of us have. So I have had Zoom appointments with a technician and a therapist prior to attending clinic so that we could fine-tune what they were actually going to do on their visit and decrease the amount of time in the PPE gear, which does get quite hot. We then used it for the trial of a complex wheelchair so that the therapist and technician was present, and I was remotely zoomed in as well as the company rep so that we could have less people present on the day in that person's bubble and still get the same result. I've used it later on with the same client, and she zoomed in and I was zooming in with the therapist, and we reviewed the equipment without anybody else present. So that was a unique one for me. So moving on to the next slide. Oh, sorry, I forgot I didn't have control. Some of the benefits of telehealth. So it allows improved access to specialist services. So some of the therapists in remote areas are only doing seating for a little bit of the time, and it allows them access to us more frequently. It can be easier for a lot of clients to be seen at home, so particularly if the people are unwell or if it's a busy household. It can be time saving, so it saves lots of emails backwards and forwards if you can just Zoom or FaceTime someone and have that conversation in person. For us, it's allowed us to stick to planned schedules, so if someone's sick, they can still Zoom in and run the appointment, or travel plans are cancelled. And it allows you to manage kept budgets for travel and time. So some of the challenges of telehealth on the next slide. Internet coverage, some of the areas I cover are quite remote and it's not great, particularly during COVID-19 when there are other people in the house trying to access devices as well. For some people, access to technology is limited. You need to use your eyes a lot more instead of your hands to look at range of movements. You're relying on what you can see. It doesn't work well if there's an issue with communication. So if you've got someone using a communication device or where English is a second language, it's not great. You don't get to read body language as well, particularly if someone's slightly out of the camera. If you've got multiple agencies involved and they all need to be talking at once, that can be quite complicated on a Zoom session. And free Zoom is only for a fixed period of time, so it can time out and then you have to log back in. So some of what we've learnt, use a method that people are familiar with and make sure you practice with them beforehand so they know what they're doing on the day. We really like portable devices, so something like an iPad or an iPhone, you can move closer to the person and see what you need to see. Time can be limited, particularly if you've got free Zoom and it's time limited. I like to plan beforehand, so I like to know exactly, write a list of what I want to know from the session, and I define the roles beforehand. So who's going to measure, who's going to hold the camera, and ideally it needs to be two separate people. So one person measures, one person holds the camera or the device, and that could be a family member if they're open to that. You need to be really specific with your instructions. So particularly if you're working remotely and you're trying to direct somebody to take measurements. Generally, I've found it works a lot better for reviews and rather than initial appointments. And that's primarily because you've already got a rapport with that client and you know some of that background information, so you're not starting from scratch. Oh my goodness, and I finished in time to spare. So just in relation, we do have that resource that I've shared as well, and Seeding to Go on their website also have a really great resource on how to measure people. That's handy as well.